This morning was one of those mornings when Spirit Team was like, Dana, we need you on the camera right now. Don't worry about hair and makeup. So here I am. It is time for some story. It's time for story time. And right now we are in that slow roll of unpacking spiritual community. I know I started with deconstructing, but I wanted to go with something just a little bit softer, a little bit kinder. And I just think a really good phrase of calling what I'm doing here is unpacking spiritual community, because I do want to honor all areas of spirituality and give us a leg to stand on with discernment and boundaries without it being the emotional violence of opinionated judgment. So just to kind of set the stage up a little bit. Now, the story that my spirit team wants me to tell about this, and this really does fall in the area of having discernment, so you can have some boundaries and use your voice. That's what the story is about. Spirit team has been kind of after me to tell this particular story. It's been in the till for about 3 days. I've been chewing on it for about 3 days. It involves some of my old days in Durango. It involves the ancient Anasazi, and it involves some spiritual community ceremony. So let's go ahead and dive into this. It's right around that 2008 to 2010 window. It's after we had the financial fallout. It's before I had all the trauma of losing my son Kenyon. And it's kind of in this sweet spot where my then husband Bob and I were living in the cabin on Florida Mesa over the Animas River Valley, Wamanooch, and the La Plata mountain ranges are in the background. We're at the edge of the gateway of the desert, really rich space we're living in, total beautiful area. And the total edge, I want to begin this by saying the total edge in the air of the ancient Anasazi. Now, if you've never lived in the Southwest, one of the things that begins to happen while you're living there, especially out in the country, is, and especially if you're sensitive, you begin to pick up this sense of oh, there's more out here walking around on the land than meets the eye. And the place where Bob and I were living at, this cabin overlooking the valley, right in the back of the cabin was this ancient Anasazi ruin. I mean, this thing was not on any historical ledgers or anything. It was just right there on private land. And, I'd walk out in the morning and go, well, there's the ancient Anasazi ruin. And it looks like a lot of the ancient Anasazi ruins that we've seen at Mesa Verde and Cedar Mesa and Chaco Canyon. I mean, the whole area is just rich with these kind of crumbling but very solid, stoic structures that are from many, 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 many years ago, right? And the other thing that happens in the area, especially when you're out on the land or living on the land, and this would particularly happen in the springtime, is the dirt was like this clay red, dusty, kind of cakey kind of dirt. And in the springtime, when the melt-off would happen, we'd have the buildup of the snow in the winter, and then when the melt-off would happen, the soil would also be dispersed like it can be, and it was like the ancient Anasazi pottery shards would come up from underneath. And so in the springtime, we would walk around on the land, and I'm like, oh my God, there's another pottery shard. There's another pottery shard. And if you're thinking, well, Dana, did you collect those and do you have those? And my answer is absolutely freaking not. And this is why. This is how powerful this is. This is different than any other kind of ancient I have ever dealt with, because if you picked up a pottery shard and you started doing something with it that the ancients did not like, they would mess with you. And I actually had that happen a couple times. There were a couple times that I wasn't paying attention and I started messing with the pottery shards, and the next thing I know, there are clouds gathering over me with thunder boomers, and the sky is clear all around, there's sunlight out everywhere else except these clouds that are forming over my head, and the thunder boomers are going on. I'm I'm telling you this part of the story to share with you how powerful the ancient Anasazi are, okay? Look them up. Look them up. Learn about them. You'll see how powerful they are connected with the land all through the Southwest, and the ruins and the pottery shards and all they left behind. It is powerful, powerful stuff. Now, the other thing I will tell you, because of this, I found more than any other place that I've lived since I have had my spiritual awakening, the Southwest is the place where I felt a great need, and Bob did too. My ex-husband Bob, he felt it too, a great need of like, oh my God, we need to be drumming on a fairly regular basis just to make contact with the ancients and like stay in good with them and like make sure we're doing things that they're happy about. Like it definitely had that kind of energy. And so this place where we lived in the cabin looking over the river, beautiful space, like we were regularly drumming. I was regularly walking the land, talking with the ancients, giving blessing, placing rocks and crystals. It was also a place where we were doing a lot of salt baths. So there was something going on with land walking ceremony, drumming, crystals, soaking in the tub, doing salt soaks in the tub, like it, and constantly, fairly regularly burning sage. I mean, there was just something in the air there. There was like something in the air. And the moment Bob and I moved to the North Fork of the Gunnison in Pena, Colorado, like that immediately softened. And I could feel a distinct difference. And so I'm sharing these descriptions with you as a preamble that sets the stage for this thing then that happened with spiritual communities. What I'm hoping is that the experiences that I'm sharing with you right now is that you begin to get a sense of like, yeah, if you're a certain sensitivity level and woke enough and doing your spiritual path enough, like you didn't mess with the ancient Anasazi. And quite frankly, if you were in contact with them, you definitely took instructions from them. And I will say, they never asked me to do anything crazy. They never asked me to do anything that endangered myself. No, it was more like this distinct sense of like, be in relation with the land. Be in relation with the land and us, in communion with the seasons, and do it very consciously, and doing ceremony and walking land. And that was just in the air. And so that's where I learned. It was like literally the ancient Anasazi taught me how to do intuitive land walking and setting up medicine wheels and going out and doing drummings with fire and full moons, even if it was just me or just me and Bob and, sometimes, us in community. So that was like what was going on in the background energetically, woven through our daily lives, right? So I share all of that description with you. So this story now will make a whole lot more sense. Again, it's somewhere between 2008, 2010. And at the time, Bob and I, my ex and I, we are pretty connected in pretty deeply with the spiritual community in the Durango, Colorado area. It is the one time of my life where we were really connected in. It was really lovely. There were some really good spiritual community things going on. I was awake, but I wasn't fully managing the upper echelons of my sensitivity levels. Like there was a lot I had that I was going to be awakening to, but it was the part of my journey where, spiritual community, it was good. It was making a lot of sense. We were participating. And yet kind of around the edges, I was beginning to go, what about that? What about that? But it hadn't fully bubbled to the surface yet, right? So it was during this time that there was this couple that were in the spiritual community who are also our neighbors down the road from us. And what I mean by down the road is we were on the top of the mesa and you went down this road, and at the bottom of the hill, the bottom of the mesa, their house was down there. And I'm going to change their names to keep them anonymous. I'm going to call them Lynn and Elaine. So Lynn and Elaine lived at the bottom of the mesa. Like we could look over the mesa and see the roof of their house. And that was kind of nice, kind of cozy, because like somebody in the spiritual community in the neighborhood, it was kind of nice. And, they came over for dinner at our place and we went over for dinner to their place. And they were the kind of couple, like, they had they had stories and we had stories, and we would sit down, and just yuck it up and have a good time, just blah, 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 blah. And so it was somewhere in the vicinity of like 2009, we'll just say 2009-ish. And Lynn gets this idea, and at this point, I can't remember if it was both of them, but Lynn was the one who spearheaded it. And she got this idea that she wanted to do community ceremony on their land to start some sort of spiritual project. And that's not out of scope. That's not out of scope. Like, that falls in the realm of stuff that was going on in the Durango areas. You go out and do ceremony in connection with spiritual stuff. And the deal was, Lynn was just like so obsessed with this and so obsessed with doing this and including certain members in spiritual community to come do this, that she was just on it. And so she invited myself and Bob. She invited us and, described what was going to be going on and what they were going to do. And she's telling this to me, and I'm beginning to realize I'm having a funny feeling of like, okay, I don't know. I was like really on the fence. It was like honored that she asked, but not really sure about it. Still kind of fuzzy on the details, but she was just bound and determined that we're there and other people are there. And she's like, God love her, she's the kind of person where she just would pester you and pester you and pester you and pester you until you said no, so she wouldn't pester you anymore. And that was kind of how it felt like to me. It's like, okay, I'm finally going to say yes just so she'll stop pestering me. Bad idea. Like I could tell you right out of the gate, something was hinky and I knew it, but I wasn't sure quite what it was. And I didn't want to disappoint Lynn and Elaine. And so I was like, okay, we'll go do this thing. Like they've done a lot of stuff for us, We'll go over do this for them. Like, okay. So day of the ceremony, we go over, people are collecting at their house. It's really kind of lovely that, they got a little buffet spread that we're going to have afterwards. Like there was this whole thing going on with it. You could feel the ambiance in the air. And the thing, but before I tell you what happens, the thing I will tell you, if you don't already know this, like if you're kind of a newbie to the spiritual path, the thing that happens when you're doing spiritual ceremony is, or you're doing sessions or you're doing healing work, the deal is that you triangulate energy, and that then becomes amplified. And it kind of goes with I think this is the Bhagavad Gita or something. It's that whole thing about the 1 becomes the 2 becomes the 3 becomes the 10,000. Well, triangles, when you connect an energy triangle, and triangles are power anyway, but when you connect an energy triangle, whoop, it amplifies energy. That's why ceremony is so powerful. That's why session space is so powerful. That's why anything you do with spirit realm is powerful, because there's you, then there's other parties or one other party, depending on the situation. So there's, you and another party. And then the third point is spirit realm. So when you connect up yourself with another party or other parties, and then spirit realm and back with yourself, when you do that 3 triangular thing, you literally go from la 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 to and it all gets amplified. And then you can go into higher energy space with yourself and everybody else, and you begin to see more and hear more. And you're in that higher vibrational 5D plus sacred kind of space. The thing I will tell you is like, do not ever underestimate that energy. Ever. This is why, this is why when you go into session with a practitioner, why setting intentional energy space is so important, because when you go foomp, you want to make sure the good stuff is there. You don't want to go foomp and have all this, energetic riffraff floating around. And so many of the spiritual community, so many people in the spiritual community do not get this. They're like, la, 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 or this, and then the wheels come off the bus. And like the more awake and more aware and more sensitive I've become and aware of my own sensitivity levels, I am super aware of this dynamic, whether other people in the room are aware of it or not. And this event with Lynn and Elaine when all this went down. This was my tipping point. This was my tipping point when I went, oh, oh, like this stuff counts. Like this whole thing, you know, when it went down, like I walked away from it going, oh, this shit's real and it counts and discernment and boundaries are important. And I just found out why. So we're at that place in this whole thing where, you know, Lynn has gotten all of us together. She's pestered enough people to get enough people to show. We all get together. We're there at the place. They have set everything up. It's beautiful. You can feel the vibration in the air, and it doesn't feel bad. It feels pretty good. And you know, Bob and I are there. We're like, okay, we're gonna play along for them. That's the other thing I'll tell you. Don't ever go into a spiritual event and go, I'll just play along. You need to decide if you want to be there or not. And if you do want to be there, what is your intention? My intention was, I'll be there, you know, be a warm body, fill in a blank for, you know, Lynn. Don't really want to do this. Something's a little bit off, but hey, that was my intention. That is a bullshit intention. Like somebody needed to call bullshit on me. And I ended up having to call bullshit on myself. So this is what happened. So we go, you know, so everybody's gathered, it's all feeling fairly good, and then it's time to do ceremony. So we go out into this open space, and Lynn and Elaine, they have set up their medicine wheel with rocks and crystals and all that. So they've intentionally set this out. And then instead of saying everybody select a place, oh no. Lynn had a map of a very specific way that she wanted each, you know, certain specific people to be in certain specific locations. And she literally kind of said, okay, Dana, you are right here. And I like a place setting, like if you go to dinner and, you know, a formal dinner, a wedding, and there's place settings, like she had spiritual place settings, like you're here, you're here, you're here. It was all premeditated. It was definitely premeditated on their spot. And when she did that, something in me went, ooh, I'm not sure I want to be a spiritual pawn. Like that's the feeling that I had. But still, spiritual community, you know, that whole thing about what happens in spiritual community stays in spiritual community. What happens in Las Vegas stays in Las Vegas. Yeah, like you agree, you toe the line, you shut up, you don't say anything, and you just go along for the ride. A bad idea. Bad idea. But I did. I was a good soldier. I was a good spiritual soldier for Lynn and Elaine, and Bob and I were playing along because we want to be good neighbors, you know, the whole thing, good neighbors, all of that. And so we get placed, and I'm beginning to have that feeling like, I don't know if I want to be a spiritual pawn in this whole thing, right? And I'm just on the edge of like, you know, waking up to some more stuff in the spiritual community. And Lynn and Elaine, they start the ceremony, and that's when it happened. That's when the energies really, really came up. And remember how I was talking about triangulation and amplified energies? That is exactly what happened on the land with that medicine wheel all set up. The ancient Anasazi showed up. Like, you know, lights came up, vibrations raised, and I could see them on the playing board. I could see the ancient Anasazi on the playing board. And I silently, I went, whoa. I was like, holy fuck. And that's when I was like, what are we doing? That was my red, you know, I didn't just have flags. Those other things were flags. When this happened, it felt like a 5-alarm fire. And it felt like we were playing with fire. And up to that point, the ancient Anasazi, whether I could see them or not, they were the ones who had guided me. I had not gone out on the land and did any premeditated, I'm going to do my thing. I would get called out, and they would be like, we need you here to do this, and then we need you here to do that, and la, la, la. And I would do that, and you could feel the energy settle and the peace on the land. They guided me. And that's where I was like, oh, we don't premeditate spiritual agenda and have the Anasazi do that for us. It does not work that way. And I got all of that non-verbally in a very short period of time as Lynn and Elaine are standing there doing ceremony and the lights have come up and I see the ancient ancestors. Like, I can energetically see them. Physically, no, but I can energetically feel them, see them in my energy screen, and I'm like, oh, we're playing with fire with a ceremony. And that's when I froze. I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? And so I just kind of stand there. And at some point, Lynn came up to me. Like, some part of the ceremony was Lynn and Elaine handing spiritual objects to us. And that's when the hair stood up on the back of my neck. And there was this feeling of like, oh no. At one point, Lynn approached me with a sacred object that she wanted me to hold. And you guys know how memory is. Was it a crystal? It could have been. Was it a bowl? I'm thinking it was a bowl, but I could be wrong in what the spiritual object was. I just know she was going to hand something off to me. And when she approached me to do that, I felt an ancient Anasazi. He was male. He was in his mid-30s, and he just kind of floated up, just looking at me, and there was an energy of like, don't, you're gonna, and I could feel him go, you're gonna hurt us. You're gonna hurt us. And then because of that, then other people are going to get hurt. He's like, and he didn't use words, it was an energy. And so Lynn was coming up to give me this sacred object, and this guy, this ancient Anasazi guy floating up with that energy. And I'm looking at Lynn, and I'm looking at him, and I'm looking at Lynn, and I'm looking at him, and she's like, here to take the object, Dana. And I literally, I dropped my hands beside me, and I was like, I can't. I'm sorry. I cannot touch that. And everything stopped. Everything stopped. And Lynn was like, what do you mean? And for the life of me, it's been so long ago, I can't remember if I told her that I saw the ancient Anasazi and they did not want this to take place. I can't remember if I told her that, or if I just stuck by my guns of just saying, this doesn't feel right. And if I touch that and hold that, something is wrong. And my body, I just can't do it. But the bottom line is I said no. I said no. In the middle of a sacred ceremony, I said no. And thank God I did. Thank God I did, because if I had been a good soldier, a good spiritual soldier, and kept my mouth shut and said, sure, Lynn, I'll take it and hold it and do whatever you want me to do, who knows what would have gotten set in motion? Who knows? And so, it was super uncomfortable to say no in the middle of a spiritual ceremony. I'd never done that before. No, never done that before. Super uncomfortable to do that. But I had that feeling, that ancient Anasazi going don't do it. And Lynn just push, pester, and my body going not right. And I had this, and I don't think this even landed in my head, but there was a feeling of, I would much rather feel uncomfortable for a short period of time than live with whatever was negative thing that was going to fall out from all this. And so when I said no to her, I can't do what you spiritually want me to do, the energies immediately collapsed. And when I said that, two other people broke rank and said, thank God you said something, Dana, because I was feeling the same thing of this feels weird and it's not right. And so I was respectful of Lynn. I was like, hey, I know you guys are trying to do something, but this is just not right for me and I can't participate in it. And I walked off. I broke rank from a spiritual ceremony, and I walked off, and I went back into the house, and I started filling my plate with some food. I think about that now. I'm like, God, I was really audacious, right? And they didn't go any further with that ceremony because of what I did. Two other people broke rank, and they were not able to fill out and complete the rest of the ceremony, even though Lynn, even though she tried or wanted to, like, it broke. And I will never forget the energy that I felt off of that 30-something male ancient Anasazi energetically in front of me there before the energies created. There was a feeling from him of deep gratefulness of like, thank you. And there was a feeling from him of like, thank you for listening to us. Thank you for listening to us, ancient Anasazi. And this is where some things really kicked it over the edge for me of like, oh, this is not made up shit. This is real. Like the singular solo spiritual walks I would do on the land, doing blessing and ceremony as guided by ancient Anasazi. I really know and feel and sense that thing of like, that kept us safe. And I have stories about the landlords there, and there was some really wonky shit that went down. But I know that the ceremony that I did as guided by the ancient Anasazi, that kept our bubble balanced and safe, and they watched over us. I know they watched over us. And when that thing went down with Lynn and Elaine, with their broken ceremony, that I wouldn't go through with it, it solidified a relationship with me, with light realm and the ancients on the land and being connected there. And like, I'll just tell you guys right now, as I have unfolded this story for you, one of the feelings that I have gotten from this experience and other experiences off and on through my career and working with people and being in spiritual community is that I feel like there's been certain places, that certain times where I have said no, and it's okay to say no in the spiritual community. We're all conditional, like, yes, just go along, just, what's the matter? Just go with it. It's all good, right? I have felt that there's been some very critical moments where I have said no within the spiritual community or within a spiritual event or within a spiritual interaction. There's been places where I have said no and had discernment and listened to what my body was saying and acting on that and being aware of that. I have had feelings where when I did that, I saved myself from whatever deep catastrophic thing that was connected with it. Now on the back end of this, I do want to say there are good things that happen in spiritual community. There are good things that happen in ceremony. There are good spiritual people interactions, and it is always a good idea to be aware, have your spidey sense on, discern. Discernment is healthy because it gives you choice and it gives you boundaries, and it really helps you stay plugged into your intuitive, your psychic, and what your body is telling you with any kind of interaction that you've got going on. Case in point, I have had situations where I looked at a thing and I was like, oh, that's hinky. And my spirit team would go, we need you to go participate. And I'd be like, really? And they're like, yeah, we need you to go insert yourself into that thing. We'll cover for you. We're taking care of you, but we need you to go in because there's something we need you to experience or do or hear or do for somebody else. And like, in those situations where it's something that I would not normally participate in, I will go do it because my spirit team is guiding me to. There's also been other situations where, like, the person running the event and all of it, and I'll look at it and go, well, I'm not on the same page with that person, and the event's drawing me in, and I'll just have that sense of like, I know it looks funny, but there's something there that is right that I need to go do. And Bob and I had some certain instances of that with drum circles where the people leading the drum circle were not really on the same page with, but for some reason, when that person was leading the drum circle, that person became super aligned, super on, like super, it's like this person that did these drum circles, some of the best drum circles I have ever been to in my entire life, because their alignment with that ceremony was just spot on, and I saw people heal and come to peace and really good things happen. And I had that happen for me too. Away from the drum circle, wouldn't touch this person with a 10-foot pole. So there is a lot of mixy-matchy going on in the spiritual community. And you can't paint it over with one color and go, bad, good. You can't do that. It doesn't work like that. It literally is a step-by-step being aware of what is coming into your circle that you can or cannot participate in. And if that is aligned for you or not aligned for you, is it an in-time space, on-time space or not? Or a spirit team saying, yeah, it looks funky, but we need you to go do it. Or you're like, some of the people, but there's an alignment going on that, like, you got to read it. You got to read every single one. Like, and especially if something is coming up on your radar and it's like, catch my attention. You need to pay attention to that and really tune in and see if it's important and worth it for you. And if so, why and at what level. A lot of different layers of discernment going on there. So that's what I've got for you for now. Thank you for being here with me. Make sure you keep walking forward to meet those miracles along the way. And I will see you in my next video.